Hey peeps, welcome back to the part 2 of our mutations guide for Ark Mobile. I think this is the most requested video after Griffin mutation on my channel, and I hope I got everything you need to know in this one video. If you enjoy, leave a like and subscribe if you're new here, and let's start the video. In part 1 we seen how to get the perfect breeding pair. If some of you are watching part 2 without seeing part 1, I recommend go and see that first. I'll leave a link to the part 1 in the description of this video. In this one we're going to go through everything you need to know about mutations. But before that, let's take a look at what is a mutation in Ark and how does it work. To simply put it, a mutation is a random boost to a stat and a color change that applied to a baby creature when you breed two tamed creatures in Ark. Each time you breed, there's a 2.5% chance for a mutation to occur on the offspring, assuming both parents are eligible to receive a mutation. And for each offspring, up to 3 mutations can occur at a time. That means a offspring could have 3 stat and 3 color mutation on the same time. In Ark Mobile there's 6 types of mutations, being equus power, dodo scale, and capacity being exclusive for the mobile version of the game. But we're mainly focusing on the main ones, being color mutation and stat mutation, cause the exclusive mutations are species dependent. Let's start with color mutation. Color mutations is a color change that get applied to a baby creature when a mutation occurs. A color mutation will always accompanies a stat mutation. That means if a baby creature get mutated, it will always have a color and a stat mutation. Color region. A color region is what gives a creature its colors. There are 6 of these color regions for every creature in the game. But not every region is visible in every creature. Earlier in the video I said that a color mutation always accompanies a stat mutation. But you might have seen mutated creatures with only stat mutation. That means the color mutation landed on a region not visible on that creature. This could happen the other way around too, where the mutated creature could have a color mutation, but no stat mutation. I'll explain this more when we reach the stat mutation part. A quick note for color mutation. In Ark there's 56 different color palette that includes naturally spawning colors to the rare ones seen on most mutated creatures. Now keep in mind that a color mutation doesn't mean it'll get a bright and flamboyant color. A color mutation is basically if a baby creature gets a different color than its parent's color, is what color mutation is all about. Out the 56 colors, only 18 are the bright and eye-catching. I'll leave the Ark Colour ID in the description if anyone wanna check it out. Before we get into stat mutations, let's take a look at pheromones and how they work. Pheromones are an Ark Mobile exclusive item that helps in breeding by drastically reducing the breeding interval and egg hatching time. But how does it help in mutations? Well, a pheromone will increase the chances of getting a mutation by 3 times. That means the 2.5% chance will increase to 7.5%. For me this is not a drastic change considering you have to pay for this one-time use item. Now let's get into the more complicated part of breeding, stat mutation. Just like the name says, a stat mutation gives a random boost to any one of the creature's stat, excluding torpor. Now we have a rough idea of what both stat and color mutation is, so let's move on to mutation stacking. First let's start with the importances of odd and even numbers in stat mutation. In stat mutation you can add a maximum of 255 points onto a single stat. But if you go over the 255 points, then that stat will re-roll back to the base stat of that creature. The downside is, if you max out a stat with 255 points, then you will not be able to level that stat anymore. But on the other hand, if you have 254 points instead of 255 points, then leveling is not a problem at all. So when you are taming creatures for breeding, tame the ones with odd numbers for the stat you don't need and even numbers for the stats you do need. Mutation counter. So there are 2 sides of creature ancestry where you can find the mutations of that creature. Where it shows 0 out of 20 on the mother side and 0 out of 20 on the father side. So what does the mutation counter actually means? I know 90% of Ark players think that it shows the number of mutations that creature has. The mutation counter only shows the sum of the mutation counter of the parents. So let's see how does this work. So this is how your first mutation will look like. You will have a female with 0 mutations and a male with 0 mutations, and suddenly you got a baby with a mutation on one of its sides, in this case on the father side, so the mutation is on the right. This doesn't mean that the baby got a mutated stat from the father, this only means that the father was the one who triggered the mutation. Now remove the father and introduce our baby on his spot. After a while we got a female with a mutation that was triggered by the mother. Here we can see that our baby have a mutation from the father on the left and a mutation from our mother on the right, so on total our baby has 2 mutation on it. Now let's see what happen if we add this baby female to our breeding pool. In this round we didn't get a mutation on the baby. But here we can see that our baby has 2 mutation more than our father and 1 mutation more than our mother. Even without getting an additional mutation. From now on every offspring you get from this pair will have 3 mutation from the top. This is not a real mutation. Do you remember that I said earlier that the mutation counter does not show the number of mutations that creature has, it shows the sum of the parent's mutation counter.
So if a creature gets 20 out of 20 on both sides, then it is not possible to get mutations on that creature anymore. And if you keep switching the baby with the fake mutations for our new parent, we max out the counter artificially and the game will stop giving mutations to that creature on the side that is maxed out. So the most important rule in breeding is never to breed a mutated male with a mutated female under any circumstances, until you're done with all mutations. So this is a rule that all breeders should follow if you wanna have a clean mutation. Now we go back to our example, where we have our mutated female with 2 mutations. So what are we going to do now? So we need to stack the mutations on the father side. This is easier cause you can breed 6 unmutated females with 1 mutated male on the mobile version. So 6 babies there for 6 chance for a mutation. My way is to make couple of copy of my perfect female and breed them with a mutated male. And breed until we get a mutated male from these females. But what if we get a mutated female from our breeding group? Well, what most people do is they breed this female with an unmutated male and transfer the mutation to a new male. But by doing this they will transfer the mutation counter to the female side, with 2 fake mutations that will leave us with 38 mutation triggers from our parents, with 2 trigger wasted. So if you get a female, just leave it and keep breeding until you get a male and keep switching the male until you max the mutation counter of the father side. Now let's take a look at server level cap and its role in breeding creatures. Well, in Ark there's 4 difficulty you can play on, there being easy, medium, hard and brutal. And from easy to hard the level will get capped at 450 and on brutal 600. If you are playing on any of these difficulty, then you might know that if a creature get over this level cap, that creature will get deleted after a server reset. This level cap is important to know because, if a mutation occurred, then that mutation will add +2 levels on top of the parent's level. What does this mean? Is if you are trying to stack 20 or 40 clean mutation on each of the main stat, this +2 points can add up and the creature level can go over the 450 or 600 mark really quick. Well, the best way to prevent this from happening is, after you get all the creatures with the individual stat mutated, introduce a low-level creature and combine the stats with this low-level one. So if you've done all of these right, then you'll end up with something like this. This was our perfect male we got on the part 1 of our guide. Here we can see the wild stats that we combined. And after a lot of breeding by following everything I said on this video, I got this beautiful creature, and this was the final stats I stopped at. And here we can see that our level is over 450, so I breed this one with a low-level raptor and got a decent level with all the mutated stats. Now we can add additional points by imprinting and leveling the creature. This one is not fully mutated, I can still go with at least 30 or 40 more mutation if I want, but I'm really happy with what I got and I love the color combinations that I picked for the final raptor. And this is the stat before imprinting and after imprinting. No, I can also add 60 more levels on top of this and increase the levels drastically. Now let's do a small damage comparison with one of our non-mutated perfect raptor that we started with and our mutated raptor. Both of these are not leveled at all. I'm doing this with their base melee. I hope that this video was helpful to you, and if you have any questions please feel free to leave them in the comments, or join me on my Discord server, where you can ask and share your amazing mutation with some hardcore breeders in Ark Mobile, and if you wanna see more videos like this please consider subscribing and join the family. Until then it's me RJ and I'll see you on the island.